Jason from Meeple Cafe, and now we're going to present the February entries for our Meeple Writes Flash Fiction Writing Contest. The prompts for this flash fiction were presented by the game Someone Has Died, a hilarious improv card game from the folks at Gather Round Games. After you hear the dramatic readings of each entry, you'll be able to vote in the comments below for which one is your favorite, and of course, the winner gets a prize. At the end, we'll have March's prompt based on the card game Chrononauts from Looney Labs. It was such an unexpected death, I heard people say. Such an experienced fisherman and swimmer to just slip off the pier and drown. But he fell off the wagon, and that's what really killed him, the booze. Everyone knew about the recent drinking habit he took up after he lost his 10-year-old daughter. Who would blame him, though? It was a boating accident. Police never found the body. He refused to believe that she was dead. In fact, he swore that she was still alive and that he knew who had taken her, but he wouldn't tell me who. "You wouldn't believe me," he had said. "You'd think I'm crazy. And so would Jeff. Everyone would. I'd get locked up. I'd lose my chance at finding her." Jeff and I were his best friends. I met my friend and his wife when our kids were in pre-K. I was nominated PTA president that year, and the parents thought it would be fun to hold a masquerade ball for the kiddos to raise money to upgrade the playground equipment that was looking rather shabby. During the event, I struggled to keep up with the soda demand, and we just about ran out. He must have overheard because he went out and bought just enough soda to last the remainder of the party. My wife and I thanked him by taking him and his wife out for a beer after work a couple of nights later. All four of us got along really well and became good friends. Our wives used to spend so much time together. Jeff had moved into the neighborhood, right across the street from him 3 years later. Sadly, that was also the year my late friend's wife died, another tragic accident at sea. Being a small town, Jeff had heard the news and noticed that his neighbor's mail was piling up in the mailbox. So Jeff took the time to bring him his mail one day, and they got to talking. Turned out Jeff had lost his wife as well. He carries her ashes around with him everywhere he goes in a small urn that fits in his pocket. We both found this a bit bizarre, but Jeff was a good guy, so we overlooked it mostly. We do tease him about it every now and then. My friend was a good guy. He didn't deserve all the shit that happened to him. Jeff and I were at a loss on how to help him. We didn't know what to do to get our friend past his grief and give up this obsession that his daughter may still be alive. He spent the next 2 years drinking and searching. I lost count of how many times the police picked him up after finding him plastered and making a huge scene on the beach. Each time it looked as though he was yelling out at the ocean, but no one could understand a word he said. Finally, Jeff and I had enough and took him to Alcoholics Anonymous, where they put him through the 12-step program and set him up with a sponsor named Murdoch, who checked in on him once a week. They would meet up every Friday evening at the same pier where my friend had lost his daughter, which I thought was an odd location, but I figured Murdoch knew what he was doing. 2 weeks ago, Jeff found an advertisement in the Sunday paper. "Hey, here's an idea," Jeff said. "How about we pay for him to go on an Alaska glacier singles cruise? It's for 8 days, and it's 2 months from now." The idea of our friend going on a singles cruise made me laugh so hard I spat out my Americano. "Did you really have to spit all over my damn paper?" he snapped at me in frustration. "How does your breath always smell like garlic, even when you're drinking coffee?" He mumbled while wiping coffee driblets off his paper. "Yes, I did," I replied. "What in the hell makes you think you're going to get him on a singles cruise?" "Well, we can leave that part out," Jeff said. "We just sell it from the perspective that he'll get to see Alaska and glaciers. And I'll go too. That way he won't feel awkward about going by himself, and so he doesn't get suspicious that we're trying to hook him up or something." "Isn't that what we're doing, Jeff?" He doesn't need to know that. Worst case scenario, he has a good time just getting away for a while and seeing something new. I took a sip of my coffee and thought about Jeff's idea. After a moment I said, "You could always tell him that the cruise is for you, but you're afraid to go alone." "What?" "Tell him you're ready to give up the old jar and ash and you're finally ready to find a woman with more substance." "If that's your idea of a joke, it's not funny." "To really sell it, you better leave the old urn at home. Otherwise, he won't buy it." Annoyed, Jeff just sat there and said nothing. "Look," I continued, "I do think it would be a more solid story to use than yours. If you truly thought you were ready to move on, maybe it would encourage him as well." Jeff nodded. "You do make a good point. So, will you do it? For him?" Jeff paused for a moment. "Oh, all right. I'll do it for him." Well, our friend never got to experience the cruise, and he did seem like he was looking forward to it too. Maybe after sending him to the AA and working with Murdoch, he was finally ready to move on and live his life. But now, we'll never know. Instead of a cruise, he gets to have a burial at sea. His last request in his will, which he left for Jeff and me to take care of. A task that now terrifies me after what I saw. Why does it terrify me? Because I know how my friend died, and it wasn't because he was out drinking and slipped off the damn pier. It was a Friday evening, and the sun had just set. I happened to be driving past the pier, and I saw him standing out there talking to Murdoch. I figured I'd stop and say hi. It had been a couple of weeks since we last spoke. I parked my car and started walking towards the long pier, where they stood at the far end. As I got closer, I could hear them arguing. The wind carried bits and pieces of their heated conversation in my direction. What I heard didn't make any sense, though. It sounded like my friend was blaming Murdoch for losing his wife and daughter. I figured my ears were either playing tricks on me or my buddy had gone back to drinking. But then I saw what looked at first to be a massive wave heading toward the pier, threatening to overtake my friend and Murdoch. I started running toward them and tried to yell out a warning, but they didn't seem to hear me. When I got closer, I realized the wave wasn't made out of water, but fish. Hardhead catfish. I couldn't believe my eyes. I was stunned, and I just stood there motionless as I watched my friend and Murdoch get carried away by the wave of catfish. At least, I thought they were both taken. After the wave of catfish cleared out, I was shocked to see Murdoch still standing there. It looked like he was taking a swig from a beer bottle. Then he set it down, jumped into the ocean, and it was gone. I haven't told a soul what I saw that night, not even Jeff. It's like my buddy said to me way back when his daughter disappeared, who would believe me? So I stood there quietly, along with everyone else, as my friend's coffin was gently nudged overboard and into the Atlantic. Afterward, everyone turned their gaze toward the pastor, who started a group prayer, and the boat began heading back to shore. I looked back one final time to say goodbye to my friend. When I did, I could swear I saw a woman with black hair bobbing in the water. She looked so much like my friend's deceased wife. And next to her was a young girl with golden blonde hair, the same color as his daughter. Suddenly, a wave washed over them, and they were gone. I stared for a minute before looking away. Eyes wide, I looked down at my shoes while everyone around me continued their prayers. As I stood there, I decided two things. 1. My friend and his family's deaths were tragic deaths and nothing more. 2. The ocean. I'm moving my family inland. It was late November, on a dark day with rain, when 3 strangers arrived at the Melancholy Hills mortuary. Each man was cloaked in garments of mourning. Each held his head low with shoulders heavy with suffering. The body was concealed within a dark wood casket lined with pearlescent silk, jet black curls nestled on a soft pillow. Though none could see, Her hands were gently clasping a bouquet of hibiscus, orchids, and gardenia, filling the room with the scent of a tropical island from which the girl had been born. The first man, tall, broad-shouldered, with a distinguished face and eyes the color of a raging sea, placed his hands upon the casket. A sob shook him, and trembling, he tried to still himself, but could not. Pressing his lips together, he reached for the lock and pried it open, revealing the beautiful girl who lay there as though gently sleeping. "What have you done?" cried the second man, rushing towards the first. His eyes were the color of the darkest night, and they were red. The first man cast an imperious look at the other, then dismissed him without words. He reached into the casket and touched the girl's cold face. "My love," he said, "how can I live without you?" The second man was outraged. "Are you insane?" he demanded, face full of fire. "This girl was mine in life. I swear she did not know you." The first man cast the other a withering look, and it seemed as though the room filled with an icy wind. "You must be mistaken. This flower was my life." A door opened and the undertaker scurried in, alarmed. "Sirs," he interrupted, bowing awkwardly, "you raise your voices in this place. For shame!" The first man sneered. "Do you know who I am, boy?" The undertaker bowed again. "No, sir, but there is another behind the door who also swears the girl was to be his bride. So I will make no judgment, nor disrespect for the dead, but implore you both to settle this elsewhere, at another time." "Sirs, I regret this impropriety, but others have gathered. Let this girl's legacy not be his scandal." The first man stepped forward and placed both of his hands on the undertaker's shoulders. "I do not like your face," he declared, his eyes narrowed. The undertaker shook, but held his ground. "Sir, please, if you love this girl." The doors of the room blew open as the man lifted his head back and screamed. "I am Poseidon, god of the oceans and the seas. I will not be silenced by an ordinary man like you." Poseidon released the undertaker, and the rain spilled into the room as he knelt by the casket. "I loved her. The sea could not contain all of the tears I have wept for her," he cried. "You did not know her. For you, her beauty was everything. For me, it was the way she cooked stir-fry, with copious amounts of garlic and onion. Only a woman with such culinary skill could appreciate a man like me," Anthony insisted, smashing his fist against the fine table. His face crumpled. "This woman, after satisfying my palate, would then press her lips against mine," he sobbed. "Do you realize that this jewel, this woman, loved garlic?" Neither man had noticed the crowd gathering as they fought over the dead girl's intentions. The others murmured, averting their eyes but clinging to each salacious word. When the second man turned on them, his voice rose with outrage. "It was his fault, I tell you. Her obsession with water that started with him. Had she drunk deeply of the glass of love poured for her, she would have still been there by my side." Anthony swept his arms outward, his face etched with pain. "But he told her she must give it up, and to save herself she must not drink again. And so I say, Poseidon has killed this woman." The third lover entered the room, eyes bloodshot. He swept his hat off his blonde hair and regarded the two other men coldly. "My name is Marcus. Did you know my bride?" he demanded. Anthony and Poseidon stared at Marcus, both shocked. He wore a three-piece suit, and his skin was the color of alabaster. His eyes could cut glass, and he was handsome in the way of movie stars. He approached the dead girl and looked down, despair twisting his features. "Ah, the smell of garlic cloves concealed behind a bouquet of paradise," he murmured. "Still, you would deny me, darling," he added regretfully. "Do you not realize that because of you I ate garlic every day, so that the poison would not cut me? You foolish, foolish girl. You invited me in, and so I am yours, for all eternity. Are you mad? Poseidon demanded. What is eternity to a mortal like you? Marcus turned his face to the other two men and smiled, revealing teeth that glistened despite the dim light. They seemed to lengthen as his smile became a grimace. I am no ordinary man, he spat disdainfully. Who are you both to her but distractions on her path to me? The undertaker cleared his throat. As it seems, there are not one but 3 men here. Perhaps I might suggest that the lady's truest love were to prove his position by settling the matter of the bill. The what? Poseidon thundered. The bill, sir? The undertaker repeated, summoning all of his bravery. Surely one of you might pay. He looked hopefully from one face to another, then leaned forward discreetly. The girl was a teacher. She had no money. Anthony frowned. But there is the matter of her state, is there not? He looked confused. The girl was also a writer. Poseidon glared at him. You gold digger, he muttered. How did you even meet the girl? Marcus demanded, glaring at them both. I am the president of the PTA over the school her child attends, Anthony interjected. There was the masquerade ball. It was a fundraiser, and the girl brought a plate of garlic bread, heavy on the garlic. On a singles cruise sailing through the islands, Poseidon insisted, flushing a bit. At times I like to sail the seas rather than swim in them. He looked crushed. We shared a love for literature, particularly Jane Austen. Yet you lack sense and sensibility, Anthony mocked, underneath his breath. And you are no Mr. Darcy, Poseidon thundered, deeply offended. Anthony sneered. A god who reads women's literature? He added, rolling his eyes. Poseidon glared at him. Do you even know how to read, you pompous jackal? There was a loud cough, and the 3 men turned to look at a 4th man who carried a colorful urn. He nodded to the other men and strode towards the coffin and peered down at the girl. She should be in here, he muttered, shaking his head with disapproval. He was clearly drunk, and he staggered a bit, spilling some of the contents on the marble floor. All of the other men gaped at all the unknown ashes. And who the hell are you? Marcus demanded, his eyebrows lifting. I am Dante, and I am a ethnomusicologist who met the girl on the singles cruise. The undertaker cleared his throat and looked at the 4 men. And how exactly does a poor teacher afford to go on a cruise, let alone 2? He inquired. And what exactly is an ethno-whatever? I study the cultural impact of music on an audience. For me, it is not just the music itself, but the impact. This is outrageous, Anthony declared. Which part? Aunt Marcus demanded. Dante ignored them and leaned his face closer to the girls. You catfished them all, darling, didn't you? He said loudly. He shook his head. I bet they think they're entitled to your entire estate. Estate? The undertaker gasped. Does this girl have money? Shh! Dante snapped, staggering towards him and grabbing his shirt. I, too, am an undertaker. I thought you were an ethnomusicologist, Poseidon thundered. I do not separate the 2 interests, Dante insisted. Their souls appreciate music, he bellowed. Go home. You're drunk, Anthony spat. Leave me with my love, he added, his voice breaking. There was a silence, and then Poseidon cleared his throat. Are you interested in an Alcoholics Anonymous sponsor? He murmured sympathetically. Seeing as the girl is now dead, I may take you on. You're all mad, the original Undertaker exclaimed. "You talk in circles. Who was this girl? Does she have an estate? Who was she with?" "She was murdered by any of you," an older woman interrupted, stepping forward. Her face was filled with disdain as she eyed them all. "What kind of company did my daughter keep?" She looked at them all in turn. "A washed-up god of the sea," she cast Poseidon a look of pity, "with time on his hands to read Austen." She looked at Anthony. "A pathetic little man who hides his stinky breath behind his obsession with garlic." She looked at the newest arrival, the ethnomusicologist. "And you, carrying the ashes of another while looking at her remains," the woman tisk-tisked. "And my daughter was merely tolerable in looks." All of the men gasped in outrage. The woman laughed. "And you, sir," she exclaimed, stalking over to Marcus. "Did you murder her? I know what you are," she declared. Marcus grimaced. It is the infamous mother. How do we not know the girl simply killed herself instead of enduring another moment of listening to you speak? "You are a vampire." Marcus smiled. "I assure you, madam, you suck the life out of this girl every single day of her life." "Who's going to pay for my services? Who will settle this debt?" the Undertaker screamed. There was a loud explosion of thunder and the lights went out. Everyone gasped. The Undertaker hurried to light the candles and then everyone gasped again. The girl was sitting up in the coffin, her arms crossed over her chest. Glaring at them, she tossed the flowers to the floor. "My God," she said with disgust, "you all came." The girl climbed out. "This dating thing really will be the death of me," she declared. The woman's mother stood there, shocked. The girl laughed, eyeing the men and the crowd that simply gaped. She gnashed her teeth at them and they fled, leaving her alone with the 5 men and her mother. "Girl, what is the meaning of this?" Poseidon spluttered. "I'm a vampire. It was an accident. Marcus got too frisky," she added, glaring at him. The vampire smirked. "Ha ha ha! It is forever then, my darling. I have won," he crowed. She glared at them all. "You are all ridiculous. Gods, vampires, undertakers and all." She narrowed her eyes. "And my mother," she sneered. "That's another story." The Undertaker opened his mouth. "You have caused a lot of trouble, miss. Explain yourself," he ordered. She said, shrugging. "None of you had it all." She wrinkled her nose. "However, you shouldn't have met each other. That was a little embarrassing." The girl grinned. "It's all right. I'll just kill you all, and that will be that," she declared. They all gasped. "I am your mother." "Why do you think I am the way I am?" Anthony stared at her. "But you are a teacher." "Yes, and today every one of you will learn that you should have minded your own business," she yelled. "And you all had to wake me up with your drama." She eyed her mother, then glared at her. "Run." With that, the newborn vampire disposed of all the men but Marcus. "What will you do now?" he asked. The girl rolled her eyes. "Go back to teaching on Monday, of course. I'm still a poor teacher, even if I'm a vampire." And there you have it. Those were our entries. Make sure that you comment below which one was your favorite, because each comment counts as one vote. Now, really only one person can leave one comment, so vote once and use your vote wisely. But you can share this video with your friends and get them to vote for their favorites as well. Possibly get them to vote for your favorite. And of course, the author will receive a prize to be determined. And look for our next flash fiction writing contest for March, based on Chrononauts.